For some, the dream will happen, while others, through faith, will make their dream a reality. Most were overlooked. All of them were underestimated. But the truth is they were undeniable. The Undrafted Pros.
Welcome to the Undrafted Pros podcast. I'm your host, Troy Hudson, undrafted player in the NBA in 1997. With so many tryouts coming up, especially at the AAU level, team basketball, there's a lot of trials coming up. A lot of young men and women who are looking to make, travel basketball teams, making their dreams come true, trying to play on some of the top teams. Some are beginners, some are new to the sport, and some are just trying to, make teams, be able to, participate in youth sports, right? So I want to give a little insight. Like I said, I went undrafted in 1997, which was one of the, top class draft classes. I mean, 96, of course, was probably the best, but 97 was pretty good. We had a lot of guys that got drafted in 1997 who are now who have great careers in the National Basketball Association. So I was going up against, stiff competition. I mean, this is a sport, especially now, that is a international sport. It's a worldwide sport. When I came out in 1997, I don't know the exact number, but there wasn't many players outside of the U.S. That were getting drafted, especially in the first round. You had maybe 2 to 3, 3 to 4, something like that, players overall that was getting drafted from international places, right? Europe and Africa and places of that nature. But now, the competition's even got stiffer because of that, because of the development of basketball in other countries and continents. The talent pool is larger to pick from for the NBA. So that means United States players, the slots are getting less and less. So I'm just going to give you a little background on how I went undrafted. And in 1997, I was the only undrafted player that made a NBA opening day roster. And it's a 12-man roster, so it's very slim. If you think about it, I think maybe 29, 30 teams in 1997, if I'm correct, but 12 per roster. And there's only 29 teams, and you have millions of people playing basketball. So one of the things I like to tell kids, we all hear the term, is not what you know, but who you know, right? In my case, it was more about what I knew, because you go into camp and you go into these trials and you have a skill set, but like I tell kids all the time, when you go into a camp or a high-level tryout for a high-level team, there's many people in there that have skill sets. A lot of people can dribble. A lot of people can shoot. A lot of players know how to play defense. A lot of players are athletic. So if you're all those things, what are the things that is going to separate you from the rest of them for the coaches and the evaluators to look at you and be like, this kid is an asset to this team because he understands that you have to do more than just put the ball in the hole or get a defensive stop. There's more to a team, and it's more to making a team. Even for my organization, the Uncheckable Elite, and we have a tryout coming up, and I'm hoping that the kids, if you show up to my tryout, that I see some of these things that I'm about to tell you, that I see some of it in you. So I like to tell my kids it's more about what do you do to make a team complete. So in 1997, like I said, I went undrafted, but I end up making the Utah Jazz roster. They had 2 draft picks that year. They had a draft pick who was doing a phenomenal job in New Jersey, and I'm so happy for him because he's getting another opportunity, because he's always been a player's coach. He's always been a high IQ guy. He's always been a high character guy. His name is Jock Vaughn. He went with the number one pick for the Utah Jazz. Not the number one pick in the draft, but their first pick in the first round out of Kansas. A cerebral point guard. Wasn't the greatest shooter, but he just knew how to play the game. He get to the basket. The great teammate, just overall, right? So I didn't have an opportunity to beat him at his spot because they drafted him in the first round. Money's guaranteed. They have to make sure that he's somewhat successful or they don't look good as an organization or a talent evaluator, right? I gave him a run for his money. I think I out-battled him on most days in practice in certain areas. Like I said, I was a 6'1" shooting guard. So he knew the point guard position a lot better than me because he was a true point guard to the nature. And I wasn't. But when it came to scoring the basket, more athletic, shooting the ball, handles and all of that stuff, yeah, I was better than him in my opinion. Then they had another guy out of, I think, Oklahoma State, who was their second round pick. Now, second round pick is not guaranteed to make the team. Sometimes you get partial guarantees, and then if they really, really love you, they may guarantee you before camp even start, and then you guarantee. But back in '97, that didn't happen that often, right? You had to make the team even as a second rounder. But usually, when it comes down to it, if they have an open slot, which they didn't, they had no slots available. So even he was probably going to get cut, or they probably would have put him on the injured reserve list, which a lot of teams did at that time, but the Utah Jazz, that wasn't something that they practiced. They didn't really like injured reserve players or nothing like that. They carried their 12, and that was it. So ultimately what happened was John Stockton got hurt. For the first time in his career, he had to miss games. I think he missed a month and a half. But even before that, no one knew that was going to happen. And my agent, he always set me up in situations to where it would look good for me. So going into camp, my mindset was, Troy, you're probably not going to make this team because the roster, and my agent told me this. He was straightforward with you, and he let you, his name is Bill Neff, he was straightforward with you, and he let you know what you were getting into so you have your mind right going into situations. So when I went in there undrafted, he told me, look, you're probably not going to make this team because they already have their roster full. Jacques Vaughn is their first round draft pick. He plays your position. He's already the third point guard. They had John Stockton. They had a great friend of mine, Howard Isley, and who I believe he was undrafted, but maybe not. And they had Jacques Vaughn. So a fourth point guard, that's kind of unheard of at that time because they really considered you a point. In today's time, you may have four guys that's 6'1" to 6'3" because it's a positionless basketball style of game now. But back in '97, they're going to carry 3 point guards at the most, right? So I already knew going in, I probably wouldn't make the team, but he said, look, you got to have a good showing. If you guys remember, in 1996, 96-97 season, I got drafted in '97 summer. The 96-97 Jazz had just came out of the NBA Finals. So their organization with the great coaching of Jerry Sloan, they had great credibility, right? Great credibility. You're coming out of the finals against a great Chicago Bulls team, and could have won that series. So they had great credibility, right? People knew how disciplined the Utah Jazz was. They knew if the Jazz would even bring you to camp. You know, you had to be a player that they really thought about and respected if they even bring you to camp. That's how hard-nosed and how disciplined Jerry Sloan was. So I was invited to camp by the Utah Jazz, and give a big shout out to David Fredman, who was one of the lead scouts who really believed in me. So I did have that as far as the who do you know. That got me to camp, right? So going into camp, my agent said, look, you're probably not going to make the team, but I need you to be professional, have a great work ethic, and have a good showing, because when you do get cut, when other teams acquire about you, or if I try to send you somewhere, they're going to contact the Utah Jazz and they're going to want to know what type of player you are. And a lot of times it's outside of, is he a great shooter? Is he a great ball handler? Yes, they do ask that. But like I said before, there's a lot of people who have those attributes. What else do you bring, right? So I went in there with that mentality and I just added a little something on top of it. So when you go to camp in 97, I don't know how much different it is now, but in 97, we would stay, all the guys who are not on the team, not on that team, they bring you in and they put you up in a hotel and they give you per diem. Per diem is what they give you to eat off every day, and they give you a camp check. So when they give you the camp check, your camp check is for you to do whatever you need to do with it. You know, they just got you there for camp. Your per diem is for you to eat off of. Some people eat a little bit more than others, so maybe they use some of their camp check to buy more food, or maybe they need to pay bills back home. Maybe their family needs money, whatever it is. So we got a camp check. I think the camp check may have been $1,500 a week. Per diem was like 80 some dollars a day for food. So what I would do was they would send a van to pick us up. We had 2 practices a day. They would send a van to pick us up, maybe 1 or 2 vans. We probably had, let's say, 11 or 12 guys. They would send a van to pick us up, right? And the van would bring us back home after practice. So I'm dropping a couple gems on the young people out there, whether you just starting, whether you're trying to make an AAU team, whether you're trying to make a high school team, whether you're trying to make a college roster, whether you're trying to make a pro roster. These are some gems that you can take with you, because being an undrafted player, I had to do extra stuff to get the attention and the focus on me at times. Because when these coaches and stuff are coming to camp, they're trying to get ready for the season. So you got the head coaches and everybody, especially when the roster is already full, we're basically practice bodies. They're not really thinking about us in that way. Of course, they're going to pay us a little attention because we're under their care and their watch, but we're really practice bodies. So what can I do to get them to pay a little bit extra attention to me, right? So what I used to do was I took some of my per diem money, and we didn't have Uber and Lyft and all those rideshare apps in 97, which you know. So let's say the bus will come for early practice. Say the bus will come there at 8:30 to pick everybody up. What I would do is I would call a cab. I would get there at 6:30. When I got there at 6:30, the equipment manager is the guy who's there before practice and there after practice, because he has to get the equipment ready, the uniform put on out, the shoes put out for the players, and then afterwards he has to wash that stuff, and everything has to be ready for the next morning. And historically, for all my pro athletes out there, they know that the equipment manager is the fly on the wall, right? He's the guy that's always walking around the locker room because he's picking up equipment and stuff. So he always gets to hear what's being said, and sometimes he relays that back. Some people call that a snitch, and some equipment managers are snitches. So he will relay that back. So what I would do is I would catch a cab out of my own pocket, spend my money out of my own pocket. I would catch a cab. I would go to practice early. I would get my uniform. I would go out. I would ask the equipment manager to give me a ball. I would go out, start shooting, getting the lather up, getting the sweat going, and just being in the gym before everybody. And then once everybody started walking in the gym, I already had a sweat. And so after practice, what I would do, I would go to the locker room with everybody. Well, of course, you get shots up. I want to make sure we getting shots up. I'm the last person to leave the court after practice. I would go, I would sit down in my locker. At that time, we didn't have cell phones. I mean, it's crazy. Like, there was a lot of stuff that didn't exist. We didn't have cell phones. So I probably would go down, I would sit in my locker, I would read a book, or do whatever, just fiddle around. And I would watch everyone take a shower, put their clothes on, and leave. And when they did that, guess what I did? I went back, I asked the equipment manager to get the balls out for me again, and then I would go back on the court and I would shoot an extra hour. Now, what that did was, after a while, maybe, because it's a 2-week process, after 3 or 4 days, an assistant coach starts to come in, because that's their responsibility. If guys are there early and guys are there late, they have to come and rebound for you and help you get your workout in. So we would have an assistant coach, and his name was Gordon. He was an old man at that time, very knowledgeable of the game. I think he was an East Coaster. He had a real deep accent, very passionate about the game, like extremely passionate. He would come before practice and start rebounding for me. And then he would stay after practice and starts rebounding for me, right? So I would do that. And that's what got Gordy's attention on how bad I wanted to be there and how bad I wanted this, on top of me hustling in practice, on top of me listening in practice, on top of me being the first in line in practice, on top of me doing all that thing. So that's one little thing that I did. First one, last one to leave, every single day. The other thing I did, and this is how I made this team, right? Other things were in play, but like I said, when you're doing certain things, you give yourself an edge, because then they start to see you, right? You want people to see you. The second thing I did was, whenever it was a break, a water break, coach would say, water break, get some water. I would not let John Stockton, Karl Malone, I would not let none of the starters, all the way down to the 6th man, I would not let them get their own drinks and towels. I'm the guest. So I would run and get their drinks and get their towels. Before they can even move, I'm going to get that for you. First of all, you Karl Malone. First of all, you John Stockton. I'm going to get your drink for you, because now I want them to understand that I'm here for the team. I have no ego. I'm here for the team. I want to help them win, no matter what it is. If it's getting you a towel, if it's getting you some water, if it's waving my towel on the bench, I'm here for that, because I know once I get my foot into this organization, the NBA and the Jazz, I know they're going to then take notice of the way I play, right? So that's another thing I did. And then, so thirdly, what I did was, whenever we would run plays, whenever coach would give us instruction, I knew exactly what he was talking about the first time he said it. I didn't have any problems with understanding what he was telling us to do the first time he said it. But what I would do, after he said, and we get to going, I would go up to the coach, or one of the coaches, and I say, so when I do this, should I do this? Can I move this way? Do I move this way? Does coach want me to do this? Just so they know I'm locked in. I'm locked in. So now when I do that, they see me do it, and they're like, okay, he's a person that listens and he asks questions. He really wants to learn. He wants to know the best way to do certain things for the benefit of the team. So after doing all this, I got them to take notice of me. Now all of a sudden, I'm part of the team. I made myself part of the team because I was a team player, and I had a team player mentality. So when it came time, John Stockton was in camp, and he was practicing with us in camp, and he got hurt in camp. So I didn't know nothing. I didn't know I was gonna make the team. I'm just doing everything I need to do for them to take notice of me. And if another team asks about it, because I never had any issues in my ability to play basketball and my confidence to play basketball, so I wasn't worried in that way. I want them to understand that I want to be in the NBA, that I want to make the team, that I want to be in their organization, and that I'm going to do anything it takes to help the team win and be a great team player. So John Stockton ended up getting hurt. And I didn't find this out until years later. But I end up beating out the guy who was a second-round draft pick. That's kind of unheard of, especially in 1997. And this guy was no scrub. I mean, he was a baller, athletic, shoot the ball, and he was a two-guard. 1-2. They tried to play him a little bit at 1 as well. But I beat him out. And I didn't find out until years later that they were going to keep him. They were going to keep that guy because they drafted him. No one wants to draft somebody and then a guy who was not drafted makes the roster. Now all of a sudden it's like, are you guys smart? Why did you draft him? So they end up releasing him and keeping me because John Stockton walked into the GM's office and said, we're keeping Hudson. Do not cut him. We're keeping Hudson. So shout out to John Stockton, one of the greatest point guards of all time, to see something in me, to make him step up and override what they were gonna do, right? So this is just, some gifts and some gems that I'm dropping you, because it's to make a team, and when you're undrafted and no one's even paying attention to you, you have to go the extra mile to be seen. I'm not saying kiss butt and suck up and nothing like that, but you have to let them know that you want to be on the team. And these are the type of this type of knowledge that in my organization, in my program, this is the type of knowledge that I give my players on top of the X's and O's, because X's and O's can only take you so far. If you don't have, I had a coach in Orlando when I was really struggling in Orlando, and I used to get frustrated. I got frustrated. I used to just be frustrated because I wasn't playing to my abilities. And he used to always tell me, and I didn't understand him at first, but he used to always tell me, Troy, you have to play the game within the game. He said, there's a game within the game that you have to play. Maybe other people don't have to play it. Maybe T-Mac don't have to play it. Maybe Grant Hill doesn't have to play it. That's how he was talking to me. Patrick Ewing don't have to play it. Such and such don't have to play it. But you have to play the game within the game. He said, we know that you can play, but it's not your time. So you have to play the game within the game and get the respect of the coaches and the team. Then you will be able to shine. But until then, you won't shine because you're not playing the game within the game. And this is the knowledge when you're in my organization, Uncheckable. This is the knowledge and the wisdom that I pass on alongside of the X's and O's and the W's and L's. Because in life, it's going to take more than X's and O's. And you're going to lose some and you're going to win some. But if you understand how to play the game within the game, you get much farther in life. So this is the first episode of Undrafted Pros. Be looking out for more episodes with special guests, a bunch of undrafted athletes that will be able to tell you some of their stories, because I know their stories get untold and they get lost. And there's going to be more undrafted players than there is drafted players. And some of the undrafted players that don't get drafted, sometimes they give up because they don't hear the stories of guys who are just like them. And we are less than the 1%. The 1% makes the NBA. The undrafted guy is a 0.00001. You know what I'm saying? So we have to tell our stories, and our stories are important. So on this platform, the Undrafted Pros podcast, this is what I'm going to be bringing to you. And it applies to more than sports. It applies to life, because sometimes you want that promotion at work. You're undrafted, right? You didn't get this, you didn't get that. Sometimes the mentality and hearing the story of somebody that overcame the odds will help you to overcome your odds. So stay tuned. Thank you for listening. I'm your host, T. Hud. Until next time, peace.